You know that feeling, right? An unknown number calls, your phone buzzes, maybe a little bit of curiosity, maybe a touch of, oh no, who's this? Had that this morning. Dead silence on the other end, no message left.
Classic.
So I did the usual thing, typed it into one of those who called me sites, whocalled.co.uk, actually.
I know the ones.
Didn't really tell me much. So took a chance, called it back,
And,
straight to a robot voice. This number is not in service.
oh, yeah. Almost certainly a spoofed number doing the rounds.
Oh,
Happens all the time.
Exactly. And that perfectly sets up what we're diving into today. It's vital, isn't it? We need to figure out why we just can't blindly trust caller ID anymore.
Feels so convenient. We use it every day. But that trust, it's becoming dangerous.
Especially when, it involves money or someone pretending to be official or creating this fake urgency.
Precisely. The stakes can get really high, really fast.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Caller ID. It feels so basic, so fundamental. How does it actually work? Or maybe how is it supposed to work?
Well, it's surprisingly simple at its core. And honestly, that simplicity, that's the weakness.
How so?
Basically, when someone makes a call, their phone company, the originating carrier, sends a message through the network saying, display this number. And the network, well, it mostly just passes that message along. There aren't really robust checks built in to verify if that number is legitimate.
Seriously. So my phone just shows whatever number it's told to show.
Pretty much, yeah, even if it's completely fake.
Yeah.
The system we rely on is basically running on a kind of pinky promise between phone companies.
Wow. That sounds incredibly basic, almost naive given how much we depend on it. It's like an honor system that's just being totally abused.
That's a great way to put it. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Think about that trust model.
Okay.
The whole phone system's identity mechanism is based on this inherent trust between networks. It's a leftover from, a much simpler time.
Yeah.
Fewer companies, borders meant more.
Right, less globalized fraud back then, I suppose.
Exactly. Now compare that to modern digital security. Think about secure websites, HTTPS, that little padlock icon.
Yeah.
Or logging into your online accounts using things like DWTs or single sign-on. Those systems use cryptography, mathematical proof, to verify who you are.
Proper verification.
Telecoms. At its heart, it doesn't really have that.
Yeah.
So with cheap internet calling, VoIP becoming common, and these cross-border connections, these sort of gray routes for calls.
Gray routes.
Yeah, less regulated pathways. It's become disturbingly easy for anyone malicious to just make up a number, any number. Your bank's number, the tax office, a mobile number, anything.
It's crazy to think something requiring, serious resources back in the day is now just available.
Absolutely. Spoofing has really changed. It used to be the domain of intelligence agencies, big organized crime groups, maybe nation states with the tech to mess with global networks.
They're serious players.
Now, it's accessible to opportunistic scammers, medium-sized criminal gangs, even just lone individuals with some crypto and bad intentions. The barrier to entry has just plummeted.
How low are we talking?
You can literally find spoofing as a service platforms. They pop up on Telegram, on dark web forums.
Wow.
They're these gray market SIP trunk providers. Those are the internet phone line providers who, they don't ask too many questions about the caller ID you want to use.
So you just tell them what number to show?
Pretty much. Or you could even buy the hardware yourself.
Yeah.
SIM farms, GSM gateways, VoIP kits. You can get set up online for sometimes under 500 quid.
And I guess the potential profit for the scammers makes that tiny investment worthwhile.
Oh, the return on investment can be absolutely staggering, frankly. Think about a convincing scam call pretending to be HMRC or your bank. They can pull in thousands in just one day.
Easily.
For someone persistent, especially targeting vulnerable people or operating across borders where they're harder to catch, those setup costs are nothing. It's become a scalable, sadly profitable criminal business.
So technically, how are they actually doing it? You mentioned SIP trunking.
Yeah, SIP trunking is a big one. Think of it like a big digital pipe carrying lots of phone calls over the internet. Some providers just let you specify whatever for number the caller ID you want on those calls.
Or checks.
Often minimal, especially on those gray routes. Then you've got SIM farms or GSM gateways.
What are those?
Basically, boxes full of SIM cards. They can be used to route international calls so they look like they're coming from a local number, making them seem more legit and helping to spoof the ID.
Clever.
And then, like we said, there are the off-the-shelf services where someone else handles all the tech stuff for you. Just pay and spoof.
And they combine this with other tactics, right?
Absolutely. That's what makes it so effective. They pair the spoofed number with urgent, scary scripts. Your account is compromised.
Yeah.
You owe tax.
Yeah.
Often using personal details they got from data breaches to sound convincing.
Right. Makes this seem more real.
And increasingly, they're even using AI voice cloning. Imagine getting a call that sounds exactly like your boss or family member asking for help.
That's terrifying. Okay, so that's faking the number. But you mentioned something even scarier earlier, actually taking control of someone's real number.
Yes. That takes us into SIM swap attacks. This is different from spoofing.
How so?
With spoofing, they're just displaying a fake number. With a SIM swap, the attacker actually tricks or compromises your mobile phone company.
Your actual provider.
Yes. They convince the provider to transfer your legitimate phone number onto a brand new SIM card that the attacker controls.
Oh, wow.
Once they do that, they essentially become you on the phone network. They get your calls, your texts.
Including security codes.
Exactly. They can intercept those SMS two-factor authentication codes that so many websites and apps rely on. That's often the main goal. The number is real, the network is real, but the person getting the messages isn't you.
That feels like a much more targeted, serious attack than just spoofing.
It generally is. Historically, SIM swaps were seen more with, high-value targets, state-sponsored stuff, targeting CEOs, journalists, people in finance. But we are seeing it used more now in wider financial fraud, especially stealing cryptocurrency. It takes more effort than basic spoofing, sure, but the methods are getting better known. Ordinary people are becoming targets, especially if their details leak in a data breach.
You mentioned a breach in South Korea, SK Telecom. How does that connect?
Yeah, that was really relevant timing when we were looking into this. News broke in April 2025, SK Telecom, huge provider in South Korea.
What happened?
Attackers got into systems holding sensitive SIM card metadata. Now, reports say personal data like names, financials weren't taken, thankfully.
Okay, that's something.
But they did get access to internal SIM provisioning data. That's the kind of information that could potentially make it easier to carry out SIM swap attacks later.
So it exposes a vulnerability.
Exactly. It just highlights that even genuine numbers on legitimate networks aren't immune. The underlying systems can have weaknesses attackers can exploit. It really shakes your faith in the system's identity checks.
It really does. It's shocking, actually, that with all the tech we have, this basic phone identity thing seems so fragile. Why haven't we fixed this properly yet? It seems like such an obvious problem.
It's a mix of things, really. No single easy answer.
Okay.
First, those core network protocols we talked about, SS7, the old one, SIP, the newer internet one, they just weren't built with modern security and proof of identity in mind. They assumed trust.
Legacy systems holding us back.
Pretty much. Second, spoofing is global. A scam call might originate in one country, route through another, and target someone in a third. Which country's regulator is supposed to fix that? It's really hard to police across borders.
Yeah, I can see that.
Third, and this is a bit cynical maybe, but there's evidence some of these big VoIP aggregators, the companies handling huge volumes of internet calls, might actually make money from all this gray traffic. High volume is high volume. Sure.
So less incentive to block it if it's profitable.
Potentially, yeah. Limited financial reason to clamp down too hard. And finally, there's us. Public perception. Many people just still assume that the number on the screen is real. If it looks like the bank, it must be the bank.
We've been conditioned to trust it.
Exactly.
What about new tech then? You hear about 5G all the time. Surely that's more secure. Doesn't that fix things?
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? And while there are newer protocols, things like CITRAN, SCTP, diameter, they haven't fundamentally ripped out and replaced that old trust model.
So still vulnerable.
CIGITRAN, for instance, often just carries the old SS7 signals over IP networks. Doesn't magically fix SS7's weaknesses.
Yeah.
Diameter, used in 4G and 5G, still relies heavily on those trusted links between networks. If one network gets compromised, it could potentially inject bad traffic.
And 5G itself.
5G definitely brings improvements, speed, network slicing, better data encryption, sure.
Yeah.
But its signaling layer still largely uses diameter in those existing roaming trust agreements between carriers. Plus, a lot of current 5G is non-standalone, or NSA, meaning it still relies on the older 4G core network infrastructure for some functions. So it inherits some of those older vulnerabilities. 5G is great for performance, but it's not a silver bullet for the caller ID identity problem.
Okay, so it sounds like a really tangled mess. Complex, global. Are there any concrete steps being taken? I think I heard about something called stir shaken.
Yes. Stir Shakens is probably the most significant effort so far, especially in the
The
U.S.
U.S. is leading on this.
Interestingly, yes.
Hmm.
In this specific area, they've been quite proactive compared to, say, Europe. It was driven by legislation, the Traced Act, giving the FCC more power to go after robocalls and spoofing.
Okay, so what is stir shaken?
Think of it like a digital signature or notary for calls. It's mainly for VoIP calls, internet-based calls within the U.S.
How does it work?
The phone company originating the call digitally signs the caller ID information using cryptography. The company receiving the call can then check that signature.
And tell the user.
Ideally, yes. If the signature checks out, your phone might display a verified checkmark or label. It adds a layer of authentication.
That sounds genuinely useful. Has it solved the problem in the U.S. then?
Well, not completely. It's definitely a step forward, but it has limitations.
Like what?
Firstly, it's primarily for those SIP-based VoIP calls within the U.S. It doesn't cover calls on the older SS7 networks, which still carry a lot of traffic.
Okay.
And crucially, it doesn't do much for international calls. If a scam call originates outside the U.S. and targets someone inside, stir shaken might not catch it.
Right, that global problem again.
Exactly.
Eh.
Plus, not every single provider is fully implementing it yet, creating gaps. And how that verified status actually shows up can differ depending on your phone or carrier. It's not perfectly consistent.
So, good idea, but not a complete fix. What about elsewhere? The UK, Europe?
Well, the UK explicitly decided not to adopt stir shaken. They felt it didn't fit well with their specific network setup. The EU doesn't have a single unified approach yet, though some individual countries are looking at their own solutions. So it's still quite fragmented globally.
It really seems clear then we can't take caller ID at face value anymore. So how should we think about it? What's the right mindset?
That's the key question. We need a fundamental shift. Think of caller ID not as proof of who is calling, but more like display metadata.
Metadata, like data about the call.
Exactly. It's a piece of information, maybe a clue, but absolutely not a guarantee of identity. Think about the from field in an email.
Yeah, that can be faked easily.
Right. Caller ID is basically the same principle. The number you see is who the caller claims to be, not necessarily who they are.
So it's about being more skeptical, more aware.
Precisely that. Healthy skepticism is key. Ask yourself simple questions when an unexpected number calls. Was I expecting this? Do I recognize this number from a verified source? Does the call feel overly urgent or pushy? And maybe the most important one, would I be doing what they're asking if the number came up as unknown or blocked?
That's a good check.
It's not about being paranoid all the time, but just being informed. Caller ID can still be useful context sometimes, but if it's about anything important money, personal data, you need to verify identity another way. Don't rely only on the number displayed.
Verify how?
Context matters. Did you initiate the contact? Can you hang up and call them back using a number you know is correct, like from their official website or a previous letter? Trust needs to be earned by more than just the digits on the screen.
Okay, so what does this all mean then? What needs to actually change? Who needs to do what?
It needs action on multiple fronts. It's not just down to individuals. The telecom industry itself needs to step up.
How?
Implementing robust call authentication wherever they can, whether that's stir shaken where appropriate or other standards. Getting better at spotting and blocking suspicious calls at the network level before they even reach your phone.
Right, stop it earlier.
And when a call is verified, making sure that status is shown clearly and consistently to everyone. Crucially, the number displayed must match the verified origin. No more letting spoofed numbers slip through with a verified tag.
Makes sense. And what about governments and regulators?
They have a huge role. They need to mandate authentication frameworks that actually work for their specific country's infrastructure. Maybe stir shaken isn't right for the UK, for example.
Like that common number database idea you mentioned.
Exactly. NICC ND 1214. Exploring alternatives tailored to local needs. They also need to push for international agreements to tackle the cross-border spoofing problem.
Treat it seriously.
Yes. Recognize telecom impersonation as a proper cybersecurity threat, not just a nuisance. And manage the transition away from old, insecure networks like the PSTN carefully, focusing on user safety.
Okay, industry and government. What about us, the people getting the calls? What are the practical takeaways?
Our main job is caution. Be wary of any unexpected call asking for personal or financial info. Always try to double-check important numbers from an official source, the company's website, a bill, etc., before trusting the call.
And if in doubt?
Hang up. Seriously. Just end the call. Then find the official number yourself and call them back directly. That's the safest bet.
What about people who might be higher risk?
Good point. If you're, say, a journalist, activist, executive, someone handling sensitive stuff, you need extra layers. Avoid discussing anything critical on a regular unencrypted phone call if possible.
Use encrypted apps.
Consider end-to-end encrypted calling apps where feasible for sensitive chats. And be super aware of both SIM swap and spoofing risks. Check your mobile account security settings regularly. Make sure you have strong passwords, maybe a PIN for your SIM or account changes.
So it really boils down to don't automatically trust the number on the screen.
That's the core message. It's not enough anymore.
So summing up this deep dive then, it feels like caller ID, the way we used to think of it, like a guarantee, is kind of broken. But the display of a number isn't going away. We just have to completely change how we see it.
Exactly. We move from assuming trust based on that number to actively verifying trust, using context, using other channels to check, confirming identity independently when it matters.
Like checking the ID badge of someone at the door claiming to be from the gas company.
Perfect analogy. You wouldn't just let them in based on their word, right? You'd check. You might call the company. Same principle applies to phone calls now.
Right. So the big takeaway, stop trusting, start verifying.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, and that brings us to a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. We live in a world where digital disguises like spoofed numbers are getting easier and easier to create. So maybe ask yourself, what other everyday signals, what other assumptions that we rely on might need a bit more scrutiny now? How do you verify things in other parts of your digital life? Maybe it's time we apply that same critical thinking more broadly.